My name is Adam Hoffman. I'm the CEO and a co-founder of Check the Queue. I graduated from WashU about 1 year ago, despite my aged appearance. I'm in fact 23 years old. I might look familiar as a moderator at House of Genius, but we're around in our office on the 8th floor. So about a year ago, I co-founded Check the Queue in my final semester at WashU because as a frequent traveler, there was no feeling I hated more than walking into an airport and seeing a security line that looked like it stretched for miles. And the palpable anxiety I felt when I walked in and didn't know how long I would be waiting was a feeling I hated. And frequently flying through Lambert as a student at WashU, but from Boston originally, I couldn't understand why Lambert wasn't communicating with us, travelers, how long we could expect to be waiting at security. But it turns out that long lines at security aren't just a problem for travelers. In fact, they cost airports millions of dollars every year because we as travelers try to avoid flying whenever we can get away with it because of the security experience. And when we do fly, too much of our airport time is spent in the security line instead of spending money at concessions, with a coffee, relaxing at our gate. And in fact, for every minute you spend in line at security, you spend $1 less at concessions, which may not sound like a big deal, because the concessions revenue accounts for half of an airport's revenue in any given year, which means that even an additional line length of a couple of minutes could lead to millions of dollars off the airport's bottom line. But the biggest problem is it's not just airports. In fact, long lines happen at anywhere that people congregate, be them sports stadiums, live event venues, amusement parks, etc. And all of these event venues are starting to face they've reached a critical mass with the problem where they need to search for alternative revenue streams. You know, they've maxed out the number of tickets they can sell. There aren't that many other prospective customers for them. They need to figure out how to monetize once people are inside. And that's where we come in. Our solution is simple, straightforward, and elegant. We track wait times in real time, and we communicate that information to a couple of constituencies. We communicate that information to the organization, helping them improve their operations, dynamically change their staffing, and actually, most importantly, communicate with their customers to manage expectations. This not only helps them transform their customer experience, be it us as travelers at the airport or fans at a baseball game, but it also helps them improve how they're allocating their existing resources. The net impact is a significant increase in revenue for the organizations that we work with. So we track the wait times in real time. We can talk about how we do that later in the Q&A. But what's most important is how we communicate that data. And what you can see behind me is the two different ways we communicate it. The first is a web-based dashboard that we call CTQ Ground. And this is how we communicate with our customers, the organizations, the venues, the teams, the airports. It's a web-based dashboard that gives them top-down insight into what the wait times are at different parts of their facilities right now. In addition, they can look back at historical data to understand how do wait times fluctuate over time so we can know how to better change our staffing proactively ahead of the next big Monday rush for flights or the 10 minutes before kickoff time at St. Louis FC when people start to line up for their beers. We also allow them to send mobile, real-time alerts over text message and email to their staff members so they don't need to have someone planted at the computer to understand the conditions their customers are facing. They can be dynamically kept in the loop as conditions change no matter where they are. But of course, the other constituency is about communicating wait times and activity to their customers, to manage expectations, to tell folks when they should go to the restroom, when they should go buy a drink. And that's what we call CTQ Flow. So we offer the organizations we work with a suite of tools for them to communicate with their customers, their travelers, their fans, using the channels they already like to use. Their website, their social media, digital signage in an airport, for instance. And we're truly a plug-and-play solution. So we integrate with existing infrastructure, be that an existing website, existing digital signage that's already in the airport telling you when arrivals and departures are. Our goal is to help our customers help their customers in as simple and straightforward a way as possible. So one of the reasons we're so excited about Check the Queue is that, as a last semester graduate at college, I really had no idea what I was doing, and I happened to really luckily stumble into this opportunity. As we're having this conversation, airports and stadiums around the country are having a light bulb moment where they realize the importance of investing in location awareness technology. Not only is the most common reason why folks don't spend more money in the airport at concessions, long lines, we're actually cresting towards 2020 when we'll have 10 consecutive years of record domestic travel growth, cresting at 1 billion people, and airports are not prepared. What that means is it's not just the top 15, 20 big hubs that have always been busy. For the first time ever, regional airports like Harrisburg in Pennsylvania or Scranton, airports that are even smaller than Lambert, are facing wait times routinely of 30 to 45 minutes. and they don't have the capacity to adjust. They don't have more TSA agents, they don't have more scanners. And their travelers, as you can imagine, are caught totally unawares. We're serving a really unique niche in the market, which is the airports that are starting to be busy in ways they never have been before. We also, of course, add value to larger airports, busier stadiums, etc. So, taken together, we're looking at a market. Our 5 initial domestic target verticals total around 7,500 install locations. You'll notice that the majority of them are stadiums. We've set the cutoff at, as you can see, around 5,000 person capacity, because below that, you just don't seem to have lines at concessions or the restrooms, etc. And despite the fact that there are more stadiums here than any other vertical, we remain fairly committed to our initial target market of airports. That's where we have our bread and butter, and there are only so many airports. Once you have a couple of airports under your belt, it becomes much easier to spread. They're really a risk-averse industry that at the same time no one wants to be left behind, which is part of why we like working with them. And as we'll talk about in a second, our partnership with Lambert has put us in pole position to capture the American airport market. There are a few competitors, the majority of which are European security companies, and while they use high-tech camera tracking technology to follow the movement of individuals through spaces, their cameras are so prohibitively expensive that most airports can't even consider them unless they're already rebuilding their terminal through a multi-billion-dollar innovation. Compared to that, Check the Queue, we use plug-and-play sensors that only require access to the internet, wired or wireless, and a standard electrical outlet, which every venue space has. It takes less than an hour to install. And instead of a big capital expenditure for our customers, we use a SaaS billing model. So we're just a monthly line item on their operations or marketing budget. So, as I mentioned, my name is Adam Hoffman. I'm a recent graduate from WashU. I say background in HubSpot sales. I interned there for a summer. Honestly, it's been just the most prodigious learning experience, as every entrepreneur in the audience can imagine. I'm paired by Sanela Asmanovic, who's actually over there. She joined us from Merritt's as a late-stage co-founder. She was the youngest senior engineer at the company. She's a little bit older than I am and a real rising star. And she decided to join Check the Queue because she wanted to have the experience of building something on her own. We're joined by Emily, who's out in Denver, who brought 10 years of experience in the design world to run our marketing, and Pam Hoffman, whose resume speaks for herself. She's out in Boston with an MBA from Dartmouth and years as a VP of sales. She's also my mother, as many of you might have imagined, not my wife. And the reason is that when you have the opportunity as an early stage startup to pull someone out of retirement who has 40 years of experience leading enterprise sales, it's a no-brainer, even if they changed your diapers 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, let's say. So what's next for us? We have a few things coming up on the horizon we're really excited about. So we ran a beta test with Lambert for the first 6 months of this year that recently concluded. So we're continuing to use them as our guinea pig to test new features. So in the next month, we'll be rolling out text messaging alerts for travelers through Lambert. So you'll be able to text a number no matter where you are and get an update on how long the wait times are at Lambert, so you can plan when you arrive. And once you're there, you can know what to expect and know how long you'll be waiting. In terms of paying customers, we're close to closing a deal with the second fastest growing airport in America. I don't want to name it yet, but it's not hard to Google. We're really excited about that. They serve over 11.5 million folks a year, and they'll become one of our first real advocates and champions in the space, in addition to Lambert. And we also closed a deal for a pilot with an NHL team in this coming year. So we're starting to spread into a few different verticals. We're excited about airports, we're excited about stadiums, and we'll see what the future holds. So thank you very much for hearing us out.
Okay. You without your shoes, so we feel like airline security? Okay. Is this one working too? Can you hear me? Okay. Questions? Who wants to start? Fabulous question askers.
Great presentation. Is your data anonymized, or do you actually have like subscriptions where you have data on people? Because obviously, you're sitting on a gold mine of data. I mean, stupid stuff. Like everyone who's stuck in a queue, they'd be the first ones an airport would target for those early screening sessions. Like you pay a little money, you get to go through first. But also just from a lifestyle difference, people who are, like my brother is in airports 5 days out of the week. His lifestyle is completely different than mine. So, I mean, obviously that seems like you'd have an obvious targeting ability for advertising and other people.
It's a great question. So the question, in case anyone didn't hear, was what kind of data are we collecting and what's our plan to monetize it? So We made a early on strategic decision to totally anonymize the data we're collecting, to collect no personally identifiable information. And it was obviously a big decision in the road, because like you said, there's a treasure trove of information and value that can be collected from folks, especially when they're traveling, and you have a captive audience in a line, very powerful. For us, the reason we decided to anonymize is because in the world of airports and data collection, it's almost just a binary. You collect information or it's totally anonymous, and if you collect information, you're probably not gonna be able to sell to them. So travelers, just given our current political and social climate, folks are so concerned about the perception of additional surveillance that for us it was a decision not to do it. The other benefit is that if we were collecting personal information, it would require an opt-in from folks. Because we don't collect personally identifiable information, people don't even know their mobile devices are being tracked, which means that they're anonymously contributing to our data pool. So the benefit is we're able to collect a much higher percentage of the folks that might be waiting in line than if we required an opt-in.
So what kind of sensors are you using?
So we're using proprietary sensors that track passengers' mobile devices. Specifically, they have to have Wi-Fi enabled. In airports, around 85 to 90% of folks have Wi-Fi turned on their smartphone. So you don't have to be connected to a Wi-Fi network. You just have to have Wi-Fi enabled on your phone, so your phone is sending out pings saying, I'm here, I'm ready to connect to Wi-Fi, and we can see your movement. And so what we do is, instead of counting the number of people, because obviously we'd only be able to count 85 to 90%, we take a running weighted average of how long it's taking people to make it from point A to point B. So we couldn't tell airports there are exactly 17 people in line right now. But it turns out through our work with Lambert, we've learned that's not the information they want. Because as we all know, 15 people in line could take an hour, or it could take 5 minutes, depending on a lot of different factors. So instead, the information we track is how long at any given time is it making someone make it from the beginning of concessions to the end, the beginning of security to the end, into the restroom and then out of the restroom.
As a potential person in the airport, here's what concerns I have. If this is a moneymaker to be in line, I'm going to be late now. I wasn't going to, someone is going to think that maybe it's better to have people waiting in line because it's profitable. Is this being addressed in any way?
So I think this is my mistake for not communicating effectively. Airports actually don't want you to wait in line. And this is one of the really cool ways that travelers and the venues that we're going through, fans and stadiums align, is that we hate waiting in line because it's the worst part of the journey. You're tapping your foot, you're wondering, it's not fun. Airports don't want you waiting in line because they'd rather you're relaxing at your gate with a cup of coffee or sitting at the bar with a drink, in my case. And for stadiums, it's the same way. So the statistic was, for every minute you spend in line, you spend $1 less at concessions. So the airports want to use our data to get people through security as fast as possible, and the same is true for stadiums.
Do you think you'll be playing in the space of GIS and indoor mapping to help airports plan their?
Great question. So the question is, are we going to be playing in the indoor mapping space in GIS? We're experimenting with the possibility of generating some heat maps to see broad patterns of activity within spaces. We're facing the classic entrepreneurial conundrum of how to stay focused but still tap into every opportunity. We think our bread and butter is really calculating how long people are spending in certain places, and there's a lot of opportunity for that.
Where are your sensors based in the airport?
So one of the nice things about our technology is we can, working with the airport's IT team, customize the radius from the size of this room to a football field. So we're pretty flexible. Our preferred location is actually to have our sensors just sit in the TSA podium booth. Our sensors are the size of a deck of cards, and again, they only require access to the internet and electricity. So our preferred location is to put them on one of the shelves that's not being used in the TSA booth, put it in the center of the action, and let it start to collect some valuable information. But they've also been placed in the ceiling, they've been placed against the wall, against the floor.
Any questions for Ben?
Awesome product, by the way. How expensive are your sensors? Are they easy to produce, or is it so expensive that you have to charge up the prices for airports?
So we actually give the hardware for free. Our business model is based on the subscription and the data and communicating it and enabling them to communicate it. So our pricing looks like $1,000 per month per security checkpoint, $500 per month per bathroom, $500 per month per concessions area. And everything we described in there, both the analytics for the venue and the platform to communicate it to their customers, is included in that one fee.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up question. And once the subscription ends, you also take off your sensors or?
Yep. Yep.
Thinking about the Internet of Things, could a bad guy potentially hack through a sensor and get information from somebody?
So one of the nice things about our data that we're collecting is that there wouldn't be anything of value for them. Well, there are two answers to that question. The first is there's no value in the data we collect for them to hack. They would be able to see, like, a bad guy could see when they should not arrive at the airport. Then they'd have to wait in lines, which is fine. But because we're not collecting personally identifiable information, no names, no MAC addresses, no IP addresses, not your cell phone, your email, etc., there's nothing of value for them there. And the other thing is that because we're based on the cloud, we have all the benefits of Amazon Web Services protection, so we feel pretty comfortable. If it was just us securing the data, there's no way that it'd be all right, but with Amazon backing us, we feel good.
So just thinking outside the cube, could you flip this and maybe use that as security options? Like, because there are companies that want to track all their employees, know where they are flowing inside their physical plant. I mean, literally, if this is fairly cheap technology, it could capture that market.
Yeah, so it took us like months of thinking about it to come up with that. You came up with it in 15 minutes, so I commend you for that. We're experimenting with, we're exploring talking to some schools who want to use it to know, like, when our teenagers hang out around our school at night and when are they going to break in and, you know, do crazy stuff. So we're exploring that possibility. I think, again, we really are torn between exploring every possible application of the technology and staying focused on the core application. And so I'd certainly welcome suggestions from more experienced entrepreneurs. But I think the answer is yes, there's a good application. We're not sure if we're going to pursue it right now.
Got the microphone. Do you know the people from Iowa 411?
Yeah, they're a pretty successful St. Louis-based company. Right?
Have you spoken with them? Have you met with them?
Nope.
Okay, you need help.
I would welcome an introduction.
Yes, you need to meet with them.
Yep.
Because they're doing not people but things.
Yep.
But they've probably run through a lot of problems that you're going to be running into soon.
Yep. No, I'd welcome an introduction.
Since you're going to do anonymous data, would you sell your technology or white label to another company to track collected data?
Could you give me an example of what that arrangement might look like? Because we already white label our solution for the venues that we work with.
License the IP out to somebody.
I think we're open to any possibility. If the conversation became appropriate, we'd certainly have it.
Other questions, Brad? Oh, James, sorry.
You know, you were talking about schools when you were teenagers hanging out. Do you see, or local law enforcement, doing the same thing in certain areas in certain cities? Where there's high crime.
So just for the sake of full disclosure, you're asking really good questions. A lot of these conversations we haven't had yet. I think there's a potential application of our technology. I personally want to be pretty selective about how it's applied, which is why we feel comfortable with the verticals we're in right now. But again, we're open to having any conversations I think that might come up.
This might be something a little beyond your control, but I know that a few years ago there was sort of a bad article about 90-something% of TSA agents failed like some sort of test. And so if you're incentivizing airports to speed up their security lines, is there a concern that the quality of the checks will decrease and can lead to errors?
So that's like a super impressively nuanced question. Again, I want to commend you because the dynamics between the airport and the TSA are so convoluted as you can imagine. It's a very cool question. So first, yes, the TSA sucks at their job. Like, we spent a lot of time around airports now, and we can confidently say that like the failure rates on them actually catching stuff that's going through TSA is horrific. More specifically, in our opinion, the incentive already exists for airports to expedite it. We actually think we help the TSA do their job better because when they have access to our data, they can see, oh, there's a really long line, we need to send more agents. to have the appropriate amount of manpower. Now, like obviously, that might not actually make a difference because they're so bad at their job, but our goal is give our venues the information they need and the TSA and the airlines so they can staff appropriately for the challenge they're facing.
I would think that what you're doing is helping the airport, and TSA could care less, I would think, sometimes whether the airport is happy about the line amount or not.
And it's interesting
They're not
because
sharing in that benefit.
right. Though the TSA does have, that's a great point. I think one additional element, something we've learned is like the TSA, really they just care about showing up and doing their job and clocking out, as you can imagine. But at the management level of the TSA, they're aware they're the most hated governmental agency besides Congress at the moment. So, yeah, and I mean, in this day and age, there are a lot of controversial governmental agencies. But they would love, at a management level, for things to move faster and be more efficient. So we're exploring the possibility of selling our data to them as well. And just real quick, I want to give a shout out to our fabulous interns, Sam and Michaela, you've probably seen around, and our new launch code apprentice, Steven. So they're around. Our office is on the 8th floor, but we're always hanging out and love to chat.
All right, well, thank you so much, Adam. I'm going to give you one other, I ask a question that we're, I think contractually we're obligated to ask in a presentation, which is, what can the community do to help you?
So, I mean, we're obviously a young company. The average age of our team is 33. So there's a lot of experience that we don't have. So I welcome introductions, welcome feedback on the presentation, suggestions from more experienced or less experienced entrepreneurs. We'll be Arch Grants finalists this year, so if you're an Arch Grants judge, that'd be awesome. But more tangibly, just reach out, and we want to be part of the community.